Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com with some breaking news. We have just learned that Alabama and LSU has been postponed for this weekend. This just in from various sources across the social media platforms. And here with, it's obviously, something that we knew could happen. And we're going to have our team writer, Tony Tsoukalis, in just a minute to talk about this. But I want to get your reaction. And, a lot of people say that LSU was kind of dodging. And we saw that Ed Orgeron had talked about this earlier in the week. And here it is today, that this game between Alabama and LSU will be postponed. And I'm interested to see if it's going to be postponed or if it is going to be even played at all. Because as you know, LSU already had a game that was postponed. So you kind of look at the window where you could make up a game like this and try to figure out where you put Alabama and LSU. So I think the writing was on the wall, and I think all of us in the world of college football were hoping that Alabama and LSU would play. I think Alabama was up to, a 28-point favorite in this game. So we're going to have our team writer, Tony Tsoukalis, in with us in just a second. Give me just 2 seconds while I pipe in some audio and do a little house cleaning, and then we'll get going right here on Bama Insider. But Alabama and LSU has been postponed, and this was actually Ed Orgeron from yesterday during his Monday press conference.
You said some players with COVID. Any potential starters missing for Saturday?
Oh, sure, always, yeah. With the people that are in quarantine and COVID, yeah, there's always going to be starters. Yeah, there's starters involved.
That was the audio, just a short sample from Ed Orgeron, and that was on Monday. And I'll have our team writer, Tony Tsoukalis, on in just a minute. I'm just updating our website right now as the game has been postponed. You look at kind of this from you can look at this from a couple different angles. You could look at it, one, LSU's running. You could look at it the fact that they just certainly didn't have enough players. I don't know. I'm curious to see kind of what our team writer has to say right here on Bama Insider. I get it. Touchdown, Sean. I'm so tired of LSU. They can literally do nothing. Ridiculous. Everybody's kind of chiming in right here. And, this is just in, but Alabama and LSU will be postponed, and we'll provide more information as we can right here on Bama Insider. Yeah, I think kind of when you look at, what could potentially happen going down the road, is this game going to take place in any fashion? I personally don't think that there could be a game. And how could there? Because I think if you look at the window between the SEC championship and what LSU has with their makeup game, I don't think there's going to be a specific game to be made up. Appreciate you guys joining us today. This is just in, just fresh. And actually, we just got a statement that I'm going to share with you from the University of Alabama. So just give me 1 second, and I'll pull that up for you guys right now. All right. Give me 1 second. See if I can do a couple things by myself real quick and get you that statement from the University of Alabama. Let's see if I can line this up properly. Give me 1 second. I'm getting you the official statement right here. All right. This is right from my email box. So let me get this off and I'll pipe it on. Okay, here we go. All right, Alabama. This is just in from the University of Alabama. Alabama LSU football game postponed. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The Alabama and LSU game on Saturday, November 14th, has been postponed due to a combination of positive tests and contact tracing and subsequent quarantining of individuals within LSU's program, consistent with the SEC Conference COVID-19 management requirements. While it is unfortunate to have multiple postponements in the same week, we began the season with the understanding interruptions to the schedule were possible, and we have remained focused throughout the season on the health of everyone around our program, said SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. We must remain vigilant with our programs and our community to prevent the spread of the virus and manage all activities that contribute to these interruptions. Per the SEC, because LSU has a game tentatively scheduled for December 12th, the opportunity to reschedule Alabama at LSU game will need to be evaluated. The rescheduling of games on the remaining SEC schedule may include December 19th as a playing date. The SEC's COVID-19 management requirements, as developed by the SEC Return to Activity and Medical Guidance Task Force, are available on secsports.com. All right, we're going to bring in our team writer right now, Tony Tsoukalas, a Bama Insider. Tony, hey, the news is out there, is kind of almost riding on the wall, and thank you so much for the super chat, Damien. We appreciate it. We'll certainly need some revenue boost this week, and I'm sure everybody will with, Alabama and LSU not taking place. Tony was all booked and ready to go to Baton Rouge, but instead we'll be, here. There's kind of some being, and I think it maybe the phone on your side, Tony. Tony, so the game, postponed. The writing was kind of on the wall as of yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't seem good yesterday when we were watching it. There was reports that there was multiple LSU players out. They were down to just one scholarship quarterback and no tight ends, no long snappers. That was the report from The Athletic. So it didn't look good after that. And this really isn't a surprise, but I think, I certainly was holding out a little bit of hope that maybe they'd find a way to have this matchup. The hard thing is it's really going to be hard to have this matchup moving forward. There's not an open date for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think, the statement which I just read right there, I think they're basically like saying that there's not, an available opportunity to have this game played. You could look at it from a couple different ways. But kind of let's look at it from obviously the Alabama standpoint. this team right now, 6-0. It's not going to derail Alabama from any college football playoffs or anything like that. All it's going to do is, save kind of LSU probably an embarrassment. Alabama's kind of playing at such a high level. LSU kind of trending in the wrong direction. I think the game had moved up to 28 points in favor of Alabama. But overall, Alabama is still on track to, retain the number one position and continue to play for the SEC championship game, right? Tony, it's basically just that they're not going to get this extra game against LSU.
Yeah, it's going to hurt Alabama in terms of, maybe it hurts them in the individual status. Obviously this is a game that Mac Jones could have used for his Heisman campaign. Little things like that, records, some of the records Alabama was chasing, we've mentioned last week, those are all going to be kind of in jeopardy now. As far as the long term, I don't think losing one game is going to matter. They're still going to win the SEC West at this rate. You look at other teams like Ohio State, they're going to have less games too. I don't necessarily think it's going to matter all that much. When you look at LSU, it was no longer a statement win anymore. It was no longer a resume win. Sure. The Tigers have been really struggling. I think another thing it matters is when you look at what it means to the players. This is a game that meant a lot to the players. This is why a lot of people come to Alabama is for this game. So to not have it is probably a gut punch to them. That being said, as far as the long term, I think Alabama's title hopes are still intact, and so are their SEC West title hopes.
Tony, we both heard from the players on Monday and on Tuesday. They didn't really say that, they wanted this as a redemption game, but let's face it. There was only two teams that beat Alabama, in the conference last season, LSU and Auburn. Both those games had to be penciled in as a redemption game. Do you think that, these guys, really wanted to attack LSU at this point in the season? And they didn't present that. Because we listened to, I just posted the video interviews from Dylan, Alex Otherwood and Patrick Surtain on the channel. But this team certainly wanted that redemption, obviously.
Sure. And they're not going to talk about, watching Ed Orgeron make those statements at the middle of the field and Bryant Denny, and they're not going to talk about the locker room talk, but they saw all that. And it definitely makes a difference to the players. And look, there's 3 defensive starters that are from Baton Rouge. I'm sure they were really looking forward to this trip back home to play against the hometown team, especially in a game where they're favored to kind of they could have really made a statement the way that these two teams are going. So I think there's Alabama players definitely wanted this game. This game was highly circled on the schedule.
Over the last couple of years, and we're looking at the full, the last several years of this matchup between Alabama and LSU, it's pretty much been all Alabama, as you can see right here by looking at the score comparisons all the way since 2012. This clearly is a rivalry game. This is clearly a game that, we've talked about when we played up, from, Sunday with Mick's show into yesterday, and now with the game being postponed. I mean, it's really interesting to see LSU's kind of fall off after their national championship. And that's something that, in my opinion, that just doesn't happen with Alabama. You see a consistent program under Nick Saban. Sure that LSU lost Joe Burrow and they lost countless other guys, coordinators, you name it. But I mean, is it surprising to you, Tony, that the trajectory of this program completely slipped off after the one of the best teams that we've seen in college football, really, after that 2019 season?
Yeah, so I think that they were hit with a perfect storm of bad things. First of all, you lose a ton of players. You lose a ton of players to the NFL draft. You lose coaches, and then COVID hits, and you have opt-outs. It's really tough to deal with that. I think a lot of it's complacency, and that you're right. Alabama's done a good job of battling that in recent years. But when you look at LSU, I think there's also a lot of other things that hit. And so it really made this season tough. And I think it was pretty much, if you're looking at it from an LSU standpoint, a worst case scenario.
Ed Orgeron had talked yesterday that there was COVID cases, and today, if you're just joining us, the game between Alabama and LSU has been postponed. I'm here with our team writer, Tony Tsoukalas, both of us of BamaInsider.com. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. This is breaking news that has just come in, and we read the statement just a second ago that we can. Tony, did you post a statement on Bama Insider? Did you update that?
Yeah, I'm trying to right now.
Okay, cool. So you can read the statement back at Bama Insider, but basically it said that, because of COVID and because of, what LSU is going through right now, that the game has been postponed. And I think kind of reading between the lines, we're trying to figure out, what is exactly going to happen moving forward. And we're actually going to bring on Mick Gillespie. Mick, what's going on, buddy? I mean, are you shocked by the news that, it seemed like the writing was on the wall?
Yeah, I kind of felt like that too. I was giving Tony a hard time last night on Monday Night Quarterback. Like, hey, we're gonna have a game here. LSU's running right now. It's just kind of the way that things are set up right now. It's you've got to be kind of safe. We're lucky we even have football. I mean, look at what the Big Ten did. They decided they weren't going to play, and then the Pac-12 same thing, and the SEC has drudged along. But they started a month late. And part of that is that like to try to kind of get past that first window of COVID on campus. And then, we did that, and there were some built-in off weeks. But the problem is we had our first built-in bye last week, So there's not that extra week to slide this into. I really hate the fact that that this game is a game that might not be played, right? Because, I would much rather see Alabama play LSU than play Kentucky, or play Arkansas. I mean, this is an important game. It's one of the biggest games on the schedule. I'm sure that LSU's not going to say it, but there's probably a sigh of relief that they don't have to play this Alabama team as bad as they are this year on the field. But, you just hope that everybody's going to be okay. Forget about the football. And, when you're dealing with COVID, it's not just you. It's the people that you're around. So I'm not surprised. I kind of was sitting around here waiting for this, and then, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe we're not going to have it. And then obviously that's, the news that we got there. So no football again this week.
Yeah, I know. Quite the bummer. And I was excited to see, Alabama versus LSU. I mean, who isn't? I mean, it's always a game that you want to see, and you want to see Alabama versus LSU. I mean, that's a game that's always circled on the schedule. And a lot of people say that, LSU running. I mean, I think it was Byron Young, who's the Alabama defensive lineman, who even came out on social media and was like, simply said, don't run. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but you kind of look at how COVID has impacted several teams, throughout, the last couple of days. You look at Arkansas head football coach Sam Pittman came out that he has COVID. You look at the Auburn, you look at the Mississippi State game. That game is postponed due to COVID. I think I believe Auburn, even suspended their workouts. I think, so it's going around. And it's something that I knew we were going to have to navigate about. And kind of my fear coming into this season was we're going to play the college football season, but can we finish the college football season? And I think we're going to finish the season. But I just knew that these hurdles would come up. Now, thankfully, that the Alabama Crimson Tide, for just their sake, and I'm talking team wise, they've won 6 games. They still have 3 regular season games that hopefully they can play, which will give them enough games to qualify for what we feel is a team that can make a real run at the college football playoffs and win the national championship. Now, when you kind of get into the greater spectrum of, which teams are going to play, how many games are they going to play, I think it's going to be a nightmare for the college football playoff committee. But I'm disappointed that the game's not going forward, but I get it from both perspectives, from the health and safety standpoint. But I definitely want to see Alabama, continue to play at this high level. I mean, what they've been doing. I had a piece today on Najee Harris and just kind of the production that he's done. He's kind of a player that gets lost in the shuffle because this Alabama offense is so productive. Tony, what are your kind of thoughts about COVID kind of hitting all these teams right now? We even saw Auburn and Mississippi State. That game is also canceled.
Yeah, that game's canceled. It's looking. I think I heard that the Texas A&M game might be trending towards canceled as well. It's crazy. I think you also saw out of the conference. I believe it was Memphis and Navy was canceled. It seems like COVID's just really hitting the SEC all at once. Not just SEC, college football all at once, or at least a lot harder in this last week. It's interesting. It does run a risk. I mean, look, you're already seeing games that cannot be rescheduled. I don't know how the SEC didn't really say it, but there's just really it's going to be difficult to reschedule this game between Alabama and LSU. There might be more scenarios if more games get canceled. What happens if LSU has another COVID postponement? That other team then is not going to have a game, and so I think that could really that could cause some definite problems in the SEC moving forward. But as of now, I don't think there's anything to worry about from Alabama's perspective. It's just, this is the time we live in, and these are the kind of complications that I think at the beginning of the season we were all worried about. And now I think we can, count ourselves fortunate that we made it until November before they really started hitting.
What if Alabama and Auburn played this Saturday? I mean, I know it would be inconvenient and all that, but I mean, they're both sitting there right now without an opponent because of COVID, and they're not the teams that have had to deal with it. I mean, me personally, I don't know what that would take, but it would be great to just slide that in there and then maybe move on with the schedule as it goes on. I know it's such a big game, but just the environment that we're in, I mean, it would be great to have college football and a big game on Saturday.
Well, also, I mean, look, it's Tuesday. If they made it, that decision is not going to happen. But if it was, I mean, you're only giving these teams, 2 days to practice against each other to kind of get ready for that matchup. Also, moving that matchup, there's other pieces involved, right? So just because you move that matchup doesn't mean that you could necessarily play the LSU game later, because LSU's playing Texas A&M, I believe, on the date that Alabama's playing Auburn. So it'd be a real mess puzzling that together. It'd be great. I'd love to get college football this weekend, but that's a whole nother puzzle that gets super complicated.
You can't even do that because Auburn just announced today that they're impacted by COVID as well. So it's
that's true too.
It just it impacted everybody almost at that same week where you look at a lot of teams had that bye week. We have some audio, and I know we played it last night, but there's a lot of people coming in to the show right now. So I just wanted to present this audio. I think it was a good clip about Nick Saban kind of talking about the details about, him, what he did with his team, sending everybody back home during the break. And here's that soundbite from Monday. Here we'll go. Put it right here.
We'll go with Tony.
Coach, I've got 2. First off, do you have an update on Brian Robinson? I know he was a little bit nicked up. And then second of all, what did you address your players in terms of handling the bye week, in terms of safety precautions, and in terms of contracting COVID? Was there any guidelines you passed on to them?
Yeah, B-Rob is fine. So I don't think there's any issues there. Yes, basically, we test our players just every day, as you know. And really the guidelines that we had for our players is, look, our players have been here for a long time and they've been working for a long time. I didn't really want them to go anywhere and leave their bubble, but I didn't have the heart to tell them that they couldn't go home and see their family. So the one place our players were allowed to go was home, and that was it. If you weren't going home, then you needed to stay here and be in your bubble. And the protocol that we took is we had a meeting with every player who was leaving, reinforced social distancing and the things that they needed to do. We gave them a packet of sanitary things that would help them be able to do that, whether it's mask, hand sanitizer, whatever it might be. And then we set up video conferences with each family that they were going to go visit. And we also wanted them to really understand the importance of being able to control, the bubble that the players would be in when they were at home. Because players feel comfortable around their family, but you also don't know, where the family members are going, coming and going to. So we really tried to educate the players and their families on what needed to be done, and tried to give them all the things that we could in terms of apparatus, so that they would have the things that they needed to be able to stay safe.
Go ahead, jump in there, Rick. I got to take care of some.
Hey, before we start, I'm just going to update you guys since we've been on TV or on the stream here. Tennessee, Texas A&M has been postponed. Obviously, Mississippi State, Auburn has been postponed, and Power Mizzou is now reporting that Missouri's game against Georgia is facing COVID complications as well. So that one also doesn't look great. So it's really hitting the conference hard.
Yeah, maybe they need to push the championship game back and have an extra week. Yeah,
I thought about that, but if they do that, look, then you're pushing it back to right after Christmas, the day after Christmas, I believe, if my math is right, and then you're kind of pushing yourself into that prep for the college football playoff. I don't know if Alabama would like that. You're running out of time is really the hard part. It's a difficult situation, Mick. I feel like we've been coming up with questions, and each one there's another problem to each solution. Yeah. It's really tough. I don't know what we're gonna do here.
Well, the fact that there are so many games that are being postponed may be helpful, because you may be able to look at the schedule and finagle things where you can take advantage of that last week, because right now the fact that LSU and Florida have to play makes it really difficult for – the only team that, we really care about is Alabama. Let's be honest here. We just want to see Alabama get that game in. But, there's other teams care about themselves, and the SEC cares about getting all those games in. So maybe that now that there are more games – they'll be able to switch up the schedule. And I'm wondering, how willing are they to do that? You're only talking about 25% capacity, right? And I know there's TV revenue that's involved in this as well, but they may be able to figure it out. They only give us sometimes 10 days to figure out what time a football game starts. But going into this season, we knew that there were going to be some complications like this, and like you said, we got through 6 weeks, we didn't have any, and then Halloween came, and all these guys went out and partied, and it's probably kind of a mass spreading. At least that's what I was told from some of my sources, that the kids had got out and did the Halloween thing, and whatever. They're kids.
The days would add up in that case. Yeah, I don't know if that is, but you look at the time since Halloween that would add up to these COVID outbreaks, just in terms of the spread and how the virus progresses. So that could be it. Man.
There was one big question I had for you, though, Tony. And I think that, to me, this was the most important question. Was that you that asked that first question to Nick Saban? Were you nervous at all?
Oh, no, but it was me. Yeah, but no.
No, I think, and to kind of to follow up on that, Tony's question,
great question too.
It was a great question. I loved the confidence with the double question. He's done a fantastic job.
That was like a double hit right there.
You
snuck him with the beyond the boom.
Yeah, because we needed that Brian Robinson update as well, because everyone's like, Well, is Brian Robinson hurt as well? So no, Tony knew what he was doing. My thing is though, I mean, as we kind of navigate towards this, the rest of the college football season, like we knew we are going to get to this point, and I'm with you guys. Like, what can you do to navigate or push back the schedule? Can you push back the SEC championship game to a later point? Because then you're running against Christmas, right? But I think, like you guys were saying, since all these games are going to be postponed, like what are you going to do? And I think because more games are being postponed, then you can have some extra breathing room to continue these games. Now, COVID's not going away anytime soon, right? So that's the other thing that we're going to have to navigate around. And I think it comes down to the players too that are being affected by this. For example, I don't know if Alabama has really had time where COVID has hit their program. I know we talked about that. Did it hit them during the summertime? How many players did it hit? It seems like Alabama has kind of escaped this. So what my worry is, and I'm just talking from Alabama perspective right now, let's get the Alabama's, into the playoffs or something like that, and then a COVID outbreak hits. That'd be the worst time for something like that, just to hit Alabama. I'm just talking Alabama-centric.
Right. Well, let me say this, too, about your question, Tony. You got a great response out of Nick Saban because they had a very laid-out, detailed plan of what they wanted those guys to do when they left campus. And you got to give Alabama a lot of credit because they haven't had this issue. And you're hearing reports that maybe – and I don't know if they're substantiated or not, but what I was told is that LSU players were at a Halloween party, and that's when this stuff happens. If that's true, then, okay. I mean, Nick Saban told you detailed. You haven't seen anyone get COVID. So you got to give this Alabama program a lot of credit because it sounds like those guys are really motivated and focused on what their goal is this year, and that's to win a championship.
Yeah. Going back to the schedule too, I think that there's a big possibility Alabama doesn't play 10 games this regular season, but the good thing about this, at least this situation, is Alabama still has that get-out-of-jail-free card. Look, they might lose this game entirely to LSU, but let's say, Kyle, like you said, what happens if Alabama gets into a situation like where LSU's at, right? Well, now they still have that bye week before the SEC championship game. That bye week's not going anywhere. It's not filled by anybody because it now can't be filled by LSU. So Alabama still has that 1 week where they can make up a game, provided that the team it needs to make it up against is also free that week, which could get complicated as well. But at least Alabama has that flexibility in its schedule.
See, but with the way that college football is set up this year, none of the teams are playing the exact amount of games, right? There's always discrepancies within the schedule, and this team played, the weaker competition. I mean, Oregon, that I keep on talking about the Pac-12. Hopefully it doesn't come into play, but if one of those teams goes and they're like 7-0 and they're going to be considered for the college football playoffs, I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me. So I think that Alabama, will be fine whether they play 8, whether they play, I mean, even if they played up to now, we know that this team is one of the top teams in the entire country. Now they're going to get more games. I get that. This is a blow, I think, from just the perspective that Alabama doesn't get to put the beat down on LSU from that redemption match.
I was ready for that too.
Right. I mean, Mick was hyping that up. I mean, he was probably more excited than anybody.
If I could watch Ed Orgeron and his antics every day. It always makes me laugh. Like, I got to give him credit for going out and getting Joe Brady, who turned out to be one of the best offensive coaches. And they probably should have hired that guy as head coach. But you know what? That's just the way that the breaks are this year. I was just looking forward to Nick Saban kind of getting that rematch on a year like this after all those things were said and, the way that LSU acted after that win last year. I was so ready for that.
Yeah, Kyle, one of the things you mentioned with the Pac-12, I mean, we're just assuming that Oregon's going to get to play 7 games. Look what's happening with the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the West is immune to this disease. You would think that they're going to be hit too. And that's the problem with starting so late. At least with the way that the SEC started, look, they've already got 6 games in.
Yeah.
Alabama's going to get to 7, 8.
Because you look at the Big Ten, I mean, they can't even play like 3 games yet. There's been games that have been canceled already within the first part of their season. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up because I've been so worried about Oregon somehow like phasing through, and then at the end of the season they're like surprise. But right. I think you bring up a good point, and especially in the West. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, they're potentially going to go through that as well. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, barring a miracle cure to COVID, and I think I would take that. if that's the way Oregon's going to win a championship, I think I'll take getting rid of COVID, but that's not going to happen. So I'm assuming that the Pac-12 is also going to deal with this.
Have they said anything about, finagling the schedule from, at this point to try to make up games, or is it more just like, because they didn't say it was canceled. They said it was postponed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So postponement to me as a baseball guy, and I'm, there a lot when we get rained out, it means we're going to make it back up. If they say canceled, then that means we're not playing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they use the term postponement maybe means that, maybe I'm looking into it, but, maybe that means that we're going to see this matchup.
I don't know. Do you want to hypothetical that one, Tony?
Yeah, so here's the release we got from Alabama. It says, per the SEC, because LSU has this tentatively scheduled game for December 12th, the opportunity to schedule Alabama LSU will be evaluated. The rescheduling of the game on the remaining SEC football schedule may include December 19th as a playing date. So December 19th is the SEC championship game. Does that include moving the game? I think that the only way that game gets played, the Alabama LSU game gets played on the 19th, is if somehow Alabama was to lose 2 games and not qualify for the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Then of course you can move it back if you want to play this game, because it won't matter. But I don't see them moving the SEC championship game. Obviously that could be a possibility, but when you look at it, that means if you move the SEC championship game back a week, right? You're moving it to December 26th, the day after Christmas. And then you got to go from that to whatever the whatever the college football playoff is. Mm-hmm. That's a big ask. That's I don't think the SEC will want to do that just because it's going to hurt whoever their conference champion is. Look, it'll be Florida or Alabama probably, and both of those teams will be hampered at that point, needing that quick turnaround to go play, maybe a Notre Dame who will have more time off.
Right. But look, on the good side of things, we saw this with baseball and the NFL. Really hasn't had any issues yet. A few, but they've just played games on Tuesdays, and moved the schedule around. But we've got sports. For a while there, look, I work in baseball. I was out of work from March until, we started the tailgate show. So, this has been, kind of one of those years with this virus. We knew that things weren't going to be normal. And so I've got to give the SEC a lot of credit because they've done a nice job of trying to get these games played. So, if they move the game back a week, then you know what? They move it back a week. You're still going to have an SEC championship game. I would much rather see Alabama play LSU, partly because if this was Alabama and Arkansas or Alabama and Kentucky no. But when just everything – this is my fandom coming out. Don't hold it against me. But everything that Ed Orgeron said last year, he's owed this game. He's owed it. So I don't care if we get – I don't even care about the SEC championship game. We'll get there when we get there. I want to see Alabama and Nick Saban against Ed Orgeron, who said we're never going to lose to Alabama again. This is our house, standing on the middle of the field. What did he say? Roll Tide what?
Yeah, we have –
Roll Tide what? Is that a song? In the locker room. So this is going to be like a huge game, and I couldn't wait to see it. Maybe a little redemption, some payback.
We have this.
God, I want to see this game.
Play. We have this one. Here we go.
All right, let me play it.
Right in the middle of the field. Everybody. Hey, we've been waiting for this moment, man. Let's go. Right here in the middle of the damn field. Let's bring it down. Tigers on 3. Hell yeah. This is our house from now on. Yes, sir. Tigers on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I guess being an Alabama grad and just kind of being around the program for a long time, when Alabama scores a touchdown, they hand the football to the official. When they win a game, they don't act like they haven't won one before. We don't rush the field. And we respect our opponent. And then the locker room video is the one that really I know you don't want to play that one, Kyle, but I've seen it in the comment room. People know what I'm talking about.
Nick's been asking me to play that on.
Play it, baby.
For the last 5 days. He's like, I need that video on my show. I need that video. So
you're the administrator, though. I just got to follow the rules. But I'm telling you, Kyle, and I'm telling you too, Tony, this was going to be one of those games where Nick Saban flexed.
What's up, buddy? It's okay, Doug.
K-Dog knows about that like this. Nick Saban was coming in with guns a-blazing.
K-Dog's in the house. Hey, so
man.
I mean, so if you guys are just joining us, I know, it's unfortunate news for the weekend that the game is postponed. We're still trying to dig into whether that means if that's a soft cancel. I know, LSU has another makeup game, so it's going to get dicey regarding schedules. But please hit the thumbs up button on this video and remember to subscribe. We also want to say thanks to all you guys out there. We're now at 40,000 subscribers right here on our YouTube channel, so we greatly appreciate you guys' support. We have Andrew Bone coming up at 6:30 tonight to talk about recruiting Alabama. Will they take another running back? Kind of as you look at the running back scope today, he dropped his weekly recruiting thoughts, and a lot of people have been asking about Kamar Wheaton, the #1 running back in the country. So we'll be on live at 6:30 again. But we wanted to jump on here, just to, kind of talk about, what does this mean going forward? Because the biggest question, I guess, that I'm getting out of this, guys, is are these two teams going to play? I'm going to go ahead and say that they're not going to play. What about you, Mick?
Oh man, I don't know. I'll be honest, man. Coming into 2020, you would ask me a question like that, and I'm like 90-10, man. I'm knocking them down. I get them right. I'm like Nick Saban's winning percentage in football. I'm wrong every time now, and I think they're going to play. And so I'm guessing that you should probably take the opposite side than me, because I think that the SEC can move the schedules around. The fact that all these other teams are kind of dealing with this, you plug a game here, you move another one there, maybe you flip-flop a couple things, but I think it's doable. I would love to see this, even if they add an extra week to the schedule. They knew that was a possibility when they had when they made this schedule. So I'm gonna not to go against you, Kyle. I'm telling you, I'm probably gonna be wrong, but I think they're gonna play.
What about you, Tony? Final thought.
I just don't see it. I just don't see it unless Alabama loses. I think if this game gets played, it's not good for Alabama, because I think that the only way this game does get played is if Alabama's not in the SEC championship game. I just don't see them pushing back the games to make it happen. And so unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait another year before we can see Alabama LSU.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I think LSU is going to ride this out. And they're going to be like, well, Alabama hasn't beaten us in 2 seasons. I can already hear it coming. But yeah, we just wanted to jump on here real quick and kind of provide some context and read the official statement that the University of Alabama sent out after Alabama and LSU has been postponed. We don't know if it's going to be canceled. We'll continue to bring that coverage to you right here on Bama Insider. Stay with Bama Insider for all the latest information regarding the Alabama Crimson Tide. Definitely check out the podcast. We're trying to grow our podcast, so if you get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, search the Bama Insider Podcast, and definitely give us a listen there. We're bringing all sorts of content to you, all different ways, and we appreciate you guys' support. My name's Kyle Henderson. Definitely, stick around later tonight as we got the recruiting show. We got Mick Gillespie on, and we also got Tony Sukalis, our team writer. So all of us plus Andrew Bone on Bama Insider along with Trey Yanity. So we appreciate you guys joining us for this special program as Alabama and LSU has been postponed. Unfortunately, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do this weekend. I love to work. I love to talk football. I mean, this is what we do. So it's not like I'm like, yes, the game's canceled. I'm like, no, it sucks. The game's canceled. So follow the website for more information, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you very much for watching, and stay with Bama Insider later tonight, 6:30, talking recruiting with Andrew Bone. Thank you very much, everyone.